the Creative Chats podcast with Mike Brennan. Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Creative Chats. It's the podcast for artists, makers, and content creators where we talk about creativity, the creative process, and story. I'm your host, Mike Brennan. You can connect with me over on Instagram. I'm at MikeBone. And you can check out some of my work and connect with me on my website, which is mikebrennan.me. I'd love for you to be a part of our online community, which is found over on Facebook. It's a free Facebook community called Daily Creative Habit. And if you go to dailycreativehabit.com, there'll be a link right there for you to be able to simply just join and just get in community with other people who are creators, all types of creators, and people who are wanting to show up more consistently and just share their work and have a place to ask questions and journey alongside some people. Because let's face it, being a creator of any kind can be a lonely journey and process. So if that's you, head on over to dailycreativehabit.com, and I look forward to seeing you in the group today. I also want to extend to you the opportunity to get your own copy of my new book, which is called Make Fun a Habit. And this book came about because I started asking the question of what happened to all the fun, right? Everything starts to get real heavy, real serious, real practical in a hurry. Those things are things that we tend to champion as we get older, efficiency and productivity and responsibility and all those kind of words, which are not bad, but we can really find ourselves in a place where fun has up and left the building, where suddenly we really can't remember the last time we actually had fun doing something, let alone on a regular basis. And so this book is my challenge to myself, first and foremost, to look at my days and see where can I inject some more fun and play back into my day, back into some of even the tasks that I have to do that maybe at face value aren't so fun. The book is 30 chapters that are really short, that give you a story, an illustration, some questions, and an exercise to put into practice. Because I want to inspire you, but also then equip you and give you a plan to put something in place, to take action. Because it's no good just leaving you feeling like you've been inspired, but then not knowing what to do about that. So you can get this book on Amazon. You can also go to makefunahabit.com, and I have some other resources there for you that are free, like a Spotify playlist of my fun music and a few other fun goodies that are free. And again, you can get a signed copy of the book from makefunahabit.com. And if you are, again, a Amazon subscriber to Amazon Prime, you have free shipping, you just prefer to go that route, you can get it from Amazon.com as well in paperback and hardcover. So I encourage you, head on over there now and grab your copy today and get some more fun in your life. Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Creative Chats. And yes, I am your host, Mike Brennan. You can connect with me over on my website, which is mikebrennan.me, or on Instagram at MikeBone. Now, today's episode is actually inspired by a member of the Daily Creative Habit community. That's the free Facebook group, and I'd love for you to be a part of that, by the way. I'll link that in the show notes so you can join and be a part of that community. But this person was asking about creative archetypes. Now, what prompted this question is, I'm going to tip my hand a little here. I have on my website a free quiz that helps you discover your creative archetype. And if you're not really sure what I'm talking about with archetypes, hang tight. We're going to go through what some of that is today. And she was asking about wanting to know the other types, the other archetypes, because the quiz delivered her answer for her profile, but she wanted to know a little bit more about the other profiles. And so I figured, what better way than to actually do a show about this and inform you, because number one, maybe you're not really clued into the creative archetypes, what they are, and why they can actually be help to you. Number two, you maybe weren't even aware that I had this free quiz on my site, which again is mikebrennan.me. It's at the bottom of the page right there on the homepage. I'll get back to that in just a little bit. But I wanted to unpack this today for us because I think it's an opportunity for us to understand ourselves better, our creative motivations, and really what this boils down to is if you're familiar with any of the profile tests that are very popular, say like the DISC profiles or Enneagram. By the way, I'm an Enneagram 4, so those of you who know what that is and perhaps you align with that as well, we'll hang out and have a good heartfelt session. And if you're not familiar with some of these profiles, don't worry, it's not going to detract from this episode, but I'm simply going to inform you of what these profiles are and why they could be important to you and how they could shed some light onto maybe your creative motivations, maybe the way that you approach your creative process. And when we understand more about ourselves, we can show up in strength and in power with authority, doing the things that we do, knowing why we do them, and doing them with intent and purpose. And I think everyone can agree that that's something that we can all benefit from. So the first thing I want to just say out of the gate is, obviously creativity is not a one-size-fits-all type of thing. Each of us approaches creativity differently. But I will say that these archetypes are there as kind of an average, a profile that gives you a category to help you understand and to help you see yourself. And so the point here isn't to put you in a box. The point here is to perhaps inform you and help you see more of yourself and perhaps identify some others who are either wired the same and have the same profile or those who are different. And I'll get into a little bit of why that's important as well. So the thing about our creative archetypes is once we identify what we think we are, it can really help unlock a deeper understanding as far as how you think, how you work, how you thrive in certain creative environments even. And so we're going to walk through 6 key archetypes with its strengths and its challenges. And I'm going to give you an example of someone who you may know, someone who is famous or a celebrity, so that you can have someone to hold up and have a little bit better idea of what this looks like in action. And so knowing your creative archetype matters because it helps you play to your strengths and then also overcome some common challenges. And to realize that those challenges are common. Those are not just unique to you. Sometimes we have this temptation to think that what we experience as creative people is unique. No one else understands the challenges that we go through. No one understands that we have to overcome certain things. And yet, when we start talking about those things, we can find that actually some of those things are very common. And that can be a tremendous help because we can see and understand maybe how some other people have overcome some of those challenges. Another reason why knowing your creative archetype matters is because it improves collaboration, because you understand how you can complement someone else's strengths. This is kind of the team dynamics. This is collaboration at its best because once you know what you bring to the table and what someone else brings, you can make sure that you're covering more ground, that you're not leaving yourself open to certain things. Let's say if you happen to be someone who is very spontaneous and you get together with someone else who's very spontaneous and there's a lack of planning that is at work, well, your project may suffer because of that. And so understanding how you're wired, how someone else is wired, what the archetype is that's at work there can help you have a more balanced effort as far as collaboration. It also provides clarity on why certain approaches work or don't work for you. If you've ever wondered why certain projects seem to be a little more challenging, or perhaps you're someone who has started a lot of things and hasn't finished them, and you're someone maybe who's really methodical with your process and with making sure that all the boxes are checked, and yet you struggle with the sense of play or curiosity. These things are going to come out in these profiles and in these archetypes, so pay attention. Also, this encourages self-awareness and boosts our confidence for your unique style. Once you've dialed in your skill set, once you've dialed in your voice creatively, it boosts your self-awareness, because then you understand more about yourself, about why you're doing what you're doing, how you're doing it, and it boosts your confidence. You can show up differently and not have a lot of the baggage of someone who is just doubting everything and doubting themselves throughout the whole process. So I'm going to take some time now to unpack what these 6 key archetypes are and give you a little bit of information. And perhaps you listen and think to yourself, where do you think you fit in here? And again, at the end, I'll give you opportunity that you can head over to my website and take this challenge, this quiz, and find out for yourself what your answer is, according to some questions. So the first one is the visionary. The visionary. Now, this is a person who is the big picture thinker, and they like groundbreaking ideas. They're the person who can see the whole thing. They see the moving parts. They can see, the bird's eye view of what it is that they have in their mind, this vision that they have. And this is someone who has grand plans. This is someone who can see all the moving parts and the things that are needed, and kind of mapping out what needs to happen and when it needs to happen. They can see it all. Now, their strength is imagination and being future-oriented in their mindset. They can project and think, okay, so this is what I see when this doesn't actually exist yet. I'm using my imagination to fill in the gaps. I'm using my imagination and this future-oriented mindset to almost predict what will be and what needs to happen and who needs to be a part of it, and the grand vision of what this thing will be. Now, the challenge that comes with this archetype is that they struggle often with execution and details. They're not somebody who is bogged down in the nitty-gritty details. They won't know exactly how to accomplish all the things. They are concerned with what is it, and not so much how do we get there. The execution isn't really something that they love to get involved with, because that would bring them down into a level that would not allow them to stay on top to see everything. And so they often struggle with the execution and the details. And so if this is a solo project and you're thinking about, I'm seeing the whole grand vision, I'm seeing the big picture, and yet when it comes to it, for me to show up and actually execute some things and to pay attention to those small details, that's where you may struggle and things may start to fall apart a little bit. Who's a famous example of this? Well, Elon Musk. Now, I know there's a lot of him in the news, and some people love him, some people hate him. Regardless, Elon is a visionary who, he's obviously interested in space exploration and, electric vehicles and pushing boundaries really with technology. But he relies on teams to bring these visions to life. He's not the one in the trenches doing the actual tasks. He's the one dreaming up, hey, this is what this could look like. This is what this should be. And so what is a key role of the visionary? Well, it's driving transformative ideas and setting a creative direction. It's saying, here's where we're going. Let's go. Who's with me? That's the visionary. Number 2, the explorer. Now, the explorer, they're someone who is adaptable. They're curious. They thrive in experimentation mode. They are exploring, right? They are tinkering. They are trying to figure things out by saying, what if? And so a strength of the explorer is having just a keen observation and openness to new possibilities, because that's what curiosity brings, right? It's new possibilities. What is possible when I follow this trail, when I experiment, when I take A and B and put them together for something new that's C? There's something intoxicating for this person, the explorer, in that process of following the breadcrumbs, seeing what happens, putting some things together. I often talk about mashups on this podcast, right? Taking something from one thing and something from another and mashing them up together to get something new. That is very much the idea of what the explorer does. The challenge, often, of the explorer is that there's difficulty maintaining focus and a tendency to overthink, because there are so many possibilities that it's hard to focus. It's hard to stay on track with one thing. And so there are many things that usually vie for the attention, and that can also lead to a sense of burnout, honestly. And the tendency to overthink, to question everything, because in being curious, you're asking questions. And so that openness and that questioning can lead to actually overthinking, to over-questioning, to doubting, is this really something valuable? Is this a road to go down? Is this something to explore? I know that I can. I know there's a possibility here, but just because I can doesn't mean I should. I don't really know. And so it leaves the explorer open to kind of analysis paralysis sometimes. Now, a famous example of the explorer, Anthony Bourdain. He explored cultures and cuisines with curiosity, and he had a willingness to embrace the unknown. He was willing to say, let's try this, let's see, let's be open, and to put himself in places and to do things that a lot of other people honestly wouldn't do, because it was outside the comfort zone. The key role of the explorer is sparking innovation and navigating uncertainty, because they thrive in uncertainty, because they're asking the questions, they're following their curiosity. And because of that, it is also sparking some innovation. So number 1 was the visionary, number 2, the explorer, number 3, the alchemist. Now, the alchemist is the practical problem solver who turns their ideas into reality. The key word here, practical. And so the strength of the alchemist is efficient implementation of creative concepts. I'm going to say that again. It's efficient implementation of creative concepts. What is the best way, the most practical way that we can solve this problem that we're facing? How can we turn this creative concept into a reality? And so that is the strength of the alchemist, because they're looking for this, they're identifying, and they're heightened in their approach to this creative process. Now, the challenge for the alchemist, they prefer proven methods, and they're often resistant to unconventional approaches, meaning they're probably more susceptible to, well, this is the way we've always done it. Why should we do something new? We know that this is proven. We know that this works. Don't reinvent the wheel. And so they can get stuck in a place where they're not open to those new possibilities like the explorer, and they can miss out on some innovation. They can miss out on actually even something that may be even more efficient of a process, which is what they're concerned with, because they're relying on proven methods. And so that becomes their challenge. A famous example of this alchemist would be Thomas Edison, who transformed ideas into tangible inventions like the light bulb, and he solved problems pragmatically all along the way. This was very methodical, practical, efficient. This is the alchemist. So we had number 1, the visionary, number 2, the explorer, number 3, the Alchemist, and now number 4, the Connector. Now, the Connector is the team-oriented collaborator who builds bridges between ideas and people. I want to say that again. They build bridges between ideas and people. They're the ones who are thinking, oh, I know the perfect person for this. Oh, do you know so-and-so? I need to introduce you to that person because I think they're the person that you're looking to connect with. They're the person that you need for this project. Or they're seeing how people can connect with these ideas and come together to form these strong teams. They see how, like pieces of a puzzle, people can fit together and do more together. Their strength is fostering teamwork and facilitating collaboration. It's getting people together, it's forming these teams, and then saying, okay, I'm going to facilitate the collaboration. I'm not going to lead like the visionary. I'm not going to say, here's where we're going and lead the charge, but I'm going to facilitate collaboration so that everyone can kind of come together and know what they have to contribute. And people are working together in tandem to achieve these ideas. And so that's their strength. Now, their struggle, their challenge, they struggle with solo creative projects because of everything being so team-oriented. When it comes time for them to do things on their own, it's much more difficult because they're used to thinking about other people. They're used to seeing different skill sets coming together and snapping into place, those puzzle pieces. And yet when they're on their own for their creative projects, their solo creative projects, it's just them. And they struggle to achieve the ideas, to move forward because perhaps they feel lacking. Perhaps they feel like they don't have all the pieces that they need because they're only one puzzle piece of what is usually a team. An example of this profile, the Connector, is Oprah Winfrey, who excels in creating collaborative platforms for connection and dialogue. I mean, think about magazines, the TV shows, the interviews, all those things. Those are places where she brings people together and makes something that is bigger than what any one person can do. And sure, she's the one who's the face behind this, the name, but she has many people on teams who are actually facilitating and collaborating and showing up and helping lend their skill set so that the ideas can come to life. A key role of the Connector is creating synergy in group settings and driving collective success. It's about the group. It's about the team. It's about the collective success, not simply one person's success. Moving on to number 5, the Storyteller. Now, the Storyteller communicates ideas effectively through narrative and expression. Those are 2 key components, narrative and expression. This person is the person who constantly has a story for everything. You're in conversation and it seems like they can always trace it back to personal experience, a story that they've had happen to them, or perhaps it's a book, a movie, some story that they've encountered someplace, and it's a narrative that gets weaved back into the conversation. Their strengths, they engage and inspire others through the storytelling. They're the ones who say, you know, this is just like that movie. This is just like that book. Or, man, here's a story to illustrate these key points that we're trying to bring across and communicate. Because it's not just simply information. It's not just simply key points and things that we want people to check boxes. We want them to feel inspired. So we're going to tell stories around this and give examples so that people can feel like, oh, I see why this is important. I can hear this being walked out in real time through this narrative, through this story that the person's telling. Now I understand why the information is important. It takes the things that may seem flat and actually makes them come alive. There's something very common these days, something called data storytelling, in which it takes numbers, it takes infographics, right? And it turns them into stories so that people can understand why the numbers are important. They're not just simply numbers on a page or something to glaze over if you're not a numbers person, but it actually means that it's representing transformation, it's representing growth, it's representing something bigger, and that bigger thing has a story, it has a narrative attached to it. So the challenge of the storyteller, they risk getting lost in that very narrative without taking actionable steps. The story is so enticing, is so incredible. The narrative is so captivating that they struggle often with taking actionable steps because the story itself is put on the pedestal. And then there's not that, well, how do we actually do something practical with this? How do we actually take action on this and not just feel good and inspired? One of the things that I was taught early on through the people I was around, I guess you could say I caught it, was this idea of having inspiration and then also practical steps. That is what speaks to me, because I don't want somebody just to be all rah, 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 inspire me, but then going, okay, that was great, but what do I do with that? Like, is that going to actually make a difference in my life? And so that's why action steps are important, because it actually makes the narrative, it makes the story practical and gives you something so that you can actually experience the transformation too. Famous example, Lin-Manuel Miranda, whose storytelling in Hamilton and other works has honestly redefined creative narratives. I mean, you think about his work, you think about how he, like it or not, and honestly, I'm not a big Hamilton fan. I'll say that publicly, yes. It's only because of the style of things. I'm not someone who's big into rap music, and so sometimes that kind of gets in the way for me. But obviously very talented, obviously incredible with narratives and taking things and telling stories in a captivating way. The key role of the storyteller is inspiring and motivating through compelling stories. They're the person that you want helping cast a vision through a story and making it memorable for people, making it portable for people, because they're ready to receive this, be inspired, and then hopefully go out and do something as a result. So before we get to the last one, I'm just going to recap real quick. We had the number 1, the visionary, number 2, the explorer, number 3, the alchemist, number 4, the connector, number 5, the storyteller, and number 6 now, the architect. Now, the architect is the systematic thinker with a meticulous, structured approach. You know the kind. They have everything mapped out. There are steps to the steps. These people probably are often like the engineers. They're the people who have figured out all the structure that needs to happen. It's been systematically thought out and planned out, and they have thought of all the things. They're not leaving things to chance. And so, the meticulousness of it, man, they have really dialed things in. And so, this makes me think of like the people who put together the instruction booklets for IKEA furniture, right? Like the step-by-step, the meticulous, and I know I'm joking there, but because sometimes maybe you've had the experience where you realize that there's a piece missing or something's gone awry in those instructions. But the architect is somebody who can put this together. They're building something. There's a system. There's a structured approach. The strength is the detailed execution and mastery of the process. I'm going to say that again. The detailed execution and mastery of processes. They know their stuff because they have spent the time figuring it out and laying everything out and mulling over every detail. And the execution is spotless. There is mastery at work here. That is their strength. Now, the challenge is they can hesitate to embrace spontaneity or play or unstructured processes. They perhaps don't see the value in those things because it seems silly. It seems frivolous. It seems like a waste of time when there's serious work to be done with detailed executions and mastery. And yet there is, and if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, or you're familiar with even my book, Make Fun a Habit, you know that I talk about this all the time, the importance of play and fun and unlocking things through that method, honestly, in a way that wouldn't happen otherwise. And so their challenge is a hesitancy to embrace that spontaneity. An example, famous example of this architect might be Marie Kondo, whose methodical and structured approach to organization has inspired millions. I mean, you think about if you've ever seen the TV show where she comes on and she has someone bring all the possessions out on the lawn and they're dividing things up. It's structure, it's method, it's systematic thinking, it's being meticulous about what stays and what goes and why. And the key role to the architect is ensuring precision and excellence in creative execution. Ensuring precision and excellence in creative execution. Now, as you've listened to those 6, the visionary, the explorer, the alchemist, the connector, the storyteller, the architect, perhaps you've seen bits and pieces of yourself in multiple ones, and that's okay. This isn't something that's trying to put you in a box. It's something to help you understand yourself better. And I don't think anyone is a pure everything. I think we have shades and we're complex. But I do think that we probably have ones that we lean more towards. And understanding those archetypes and how they affect us and how they can be advantageous to us is an important thing. How do we apply this to our creative work? Well, reflect on your archetype's strengths and areas for growth. What are the things that you bring to the table? What are the strengths, the things that you excel at? And where are the areas for growth in regards to those? And then think about collaborating with those who complement the places where you have challenges. If you're someone who's very meticulous and you struggle with spontaneity, maybe you can partner with somebody who's like the explorer, who then goes and loves to ask what if and test the possibilities. And you lean on each other. It's not a right and a wrong. It's a both and. And we need certain parts of those skill sets and those strengths for different parts of the creative process. That's how things get done. That's how we actually create things and get it out into the world. And if you can partner with somebody who has a strength where you have a weakness, that's a tremendous value for you and that other person, because you get to show up doing your best and they get to show up doing their best. And neither one of you has to worry about your Achilles heel, the place where you have your greatest challenges. Lean into environments and projects that align with your archetype. Like when you know what that is, be intentional about it, because that is going to be an aid to you. It's going to help you go faster, further. And use this understanding to adapt your process and your tools for greater efficiency. When you understand more about yourself, your motivations, how you do things, why you do things, you can adapt your process. You can use different tools for greater efficiency. So at this point, you may be wondering, I really need to know what the quiz results would be for me. So I want to invite you over to mikebrennan.me, where you can take the quiz. Way down on the bottom of the homepage, you'll see Uncover Your Creative Essence. Take this quiz to discover your creative archetype. Just put your name and your email in there, take the quiz, and then record your results. Pay attention to what comes up and lean into those strengths. Collaborate with some other people. Get to know yourself better as a creative person so that you can be more efficient, more effective, more powerful. And I would love to know what your results are. Feel free to drop me a line. There's a contact form on my website, or again, I'm at Mike Bone on Instagram. I'd love to hear what your results were, maybe what you thought they would be according to this podcast and the descriptions, and what surprises were there. When we have this knowledge, it can be an aid. It can be powerful. And so I hope that this episode has shed light maybe on something that you've never thought about or haven't thought too deeply about. These creative archetypes that are there, that we can figure out where we align, figure out our strengths, figure out our challenges, our weaknesses, and we can show up more effectively. And so as I always end these episodes with the challenge for you, whatever creative archetype you fall into, go create something. Thanks for listening today. I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe, leave a rating and a review. It really helps this podcast be seen and heard by others.